And of course, we'll also give you the latest sports news and weather details. But first, this is your lead. This is On Point.
Engagement between the Johannesburg Stock Exchange CEO and protesters came to an unpleasant end following the crowd's dissatisfaction with the Stock Exchange response. As a result of this, the protesters say they will remain outside the building until they've received a more desirable reply.
The Call for Action civil society group gave the Johannesburg Stock Exchange a week to respond to their memorandum calling for the exchange and other stakeholders to fund their fight. Areas surrounding the offices in Sandton, north of Johannesburg, were brought to a standstill following today's march. The march comes after the current waves of gender-based violence.
It's important to note that within the fight against gender-based violence and femicide, we've seen that there's been an uncomfortable silence from corporate and the private sector. Today we've come and said, private sector, the president has said on several occasions that there is not enough money to fund the fight against gender-based violence and femicide. And we're saying, we're coming here, we're showing you where the money's at. And this is why the Johannesburg Stock Exchange was the most ideal place.
The JSE's CEO, Nikki Newton-King, accepted the memorandum and said it will be taken into consideration.
It frankly is completely shameful that 25 years into our democracy, our mothers, our sisters, our girl children, our colleagues, our friends cannot be safe even in their own homes, their own workplaces, their places of study, their places of play, their places to be. Can you imagine what a special country we would have if every single one of us was able to be ourselves? Every single one of us was able to be the best us, to come to work, to come to school, to go to university, to go to the places we want to be and just be ourselves. We are denying ourselves this talent as a country, and it's really an absolute tragedy. Your memorandum makes some very important points, and we as business will take that to the Business Leadership South Africa, to Business Unities to South Africa, to our listed companies, to our trading firms, and ask them to consider how they want to respond to each of those points you made. Certainly as the JSE, we also will use your memorandum as an agenda for introspection and action. I thank you very much for honouring us with your visit.
Well, our reporter Hasina Gori has been bringing us updates on the march in Sandton. Let's cross live to her. Hasina, thanks very much for joining us. So it's been quite busy and the women have been out in their numbers and you have a crowd behind you. What's happening where you are?
Good afternoon, Nompu. Yes, as we mentioned earlier, this crowd has said they will not move. We've seen them go up and down, marching down Maud Street outside the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, saying that they want an appropriate response from the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, not as a message of just saying that we will look at your mandate and it will be producing our agenda and we will, retrospect. They want some kind of action. We know that the Call for Action group, that's the consortium that is holding today's action protest, are currently in meetings with the JSE to come to some kind of a plan that they feel is more appropriate. Today we saw a very different scene in Sandton from not just cars in the street but humans coming out, protesters coming out, mainly women saying enough is enough. Our bodies are not crime scenes. We cannot keep dying. We know the statistics. Everyone has heard them at some point that at least 3 South African women will die daily at the hand of an intimate partner. And they're saying that this can't go on, that government as well as big business has a responsibility to play their part. They're asking for a 2% levy to be added to every JSE listed company, and that 2% levy will go towards gender-based violence campaigns and fund that, because they say that government doesn't have the money for it. But not just females came out in their numbers. We've seen males also join the campaign here today, and with me is one of these that have come out. Thank you so much, Keshan. Can you tell me what made you, what prompted you to come out today and lend your voice to this cause?
It's the same reason that thousands of people have come out today, and hundreds of thousands, millions, the whole country have come out in the last few weeks, because enough is enough. This country's been pushed to tipping point, and we want something to be done about it. We are tired of apologies, we are tired of empty words. We want action. We want the president, we want the government, we want proactive measures put into place so that our women and our children enjoy the same rights that we as men do. Our women and our children are being raped and killed every day. And it's time that Cyril and our government put an end to it.
As a man, we've seen hashtags that are such as men are trash. And what is your response to these kind of hashtags? And what do men need to do to be added into this conversation and to shift the mindsets that we've seen perpetuated through society as a whole?
Of course. I think the first thing that men need to do is need to understand what the hashtag means. Men are trash it's a movement, and all it's doing is it's taking aim at the patriarchal society that men have been used to growing up into, and the sort of liberalities that men have enjoyed because of the way society is formed. It's not about you as a man saying this doesn't apply to me. It does. It's because of the virtue of the fact that you're a man and you grew up in society as it's been and as it's been shaped for years and years. You enjoy privileges that women do not, simply do not. And I think as a man and as men, it's time for some introspection. It's time to look at the values that have been ingrained in us through this patriarchal society. And it's time for you to introspect and change that.
Thank you so much. That was Keshan speaking to us outside the Johannesburg Stock Exchange this afternoon, telling us about his views as a man, joining this call this morning. Here we've seen females come out in their numbers, protesters, activists come out in their numbers from as early as 2 a.m. We know that the protest action is expected to continue till at least 3 p.m. Road closures are still continuing in the Johannesburg Sandton CBD area, bringing this richest square mile in Africa to almost standstill today, in solidarity and in adding the voice for gender-based violence.
One last thing, Hasina. You mentioned that the protesters are saying that they want an appropriate response. What do they feel would be an appropriate response, given the fact that the JSE houses a number of companies, and it has said that it needs to consult with them and other stakeholders before they can come back? And of course, they can't do that in a matter of 3 hours.
What we do know is that some of the response from the JSE right now was that they'd go back to big companies, big business, to the companies that are listed, and take these measures that were brought by the protesters. What they're asking is that it can't go for a week. It can't just be that we get empty promises from the companies. They want some kind of action taken, that something will be done, and it will be done within a close time frame.
Okay, Hasina, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much, my colleague Hasina Gori, reporting there live from the JSE.